I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Melvin, let the record show everyone's present. Okay, on the consent agenda, I want to scratch items 7A and 7B from the agenda. Any questions? Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Those opposed? Okay, first up, Marilyn Kennedy, Election Administrator, Auditor's Office, canvass of shared school and to authorize auditor to pay election costs.
These are the new numbers with the small counties around us
Okay,
added in. If you saw one, the numbers didn't change a whole lot except for Iowa Western.
Are those time sensitive, these communications?
You want to sign them later?
can you just leave them with us and we'll get through this and just sign them before we leave?
As long as they get signed.
Okay,
You guys think you can manage to
Oh,
get them?
no, there's two sets of, you've got, I think,
Okay,
50
we'll go
certificates.
through about 40 signatures each.
You guys want to do that, that's fine.
Yeah, here, just leave them here and we'll pass them around when we're done.
Okay, sounds good. Here's one extra. If anyone wants it.
Okay, thank you.
Come next.
Don't anybody leave until Marilyn looks through them and makes sure everybody's signed.
Sounds good. Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you, Melvin.
Okay.
Make a motion to canvass the shared school and to authorize the auditor to pay election costs.
Okay,
Second.
I'm not sure there's any more.
got a motion and a second to approve
What
the
was that?
canvas
I'm not sure
and
there's
the
any more
authorization to pay.
pay.
Pardon?
Okay.
There shouldn't be any more money paid out because you authorized that last week, correct?
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Brenda
Good morning.
Mainwaring, President and CEO of Iowa West Foundation. Update and discussion of grant cycle or grant award cycle 3. Brenda?
Every cycle I come in to just tell you what we've done this cycle and to answer any questions you might have. I gave you our official press release. There was a lovely article in the Non-Umbrella this morning on the front page. We appreciate that. We don't set out to focus on certain areas, but as we look at each cycle and we see what the theme is, the theme this time was definitely rural support. We had a lot of great projects come in. You will see Avoca, Carson, Macedonia, Shelby, Walnut, and Walnut, along with some Harrison County and other, Carroll, Denison, Dunlap, all received funding for projects that really are driven by local residents who want to make sure that their communities are thriving, and we definitely want to support that. In addition, you will see our annual support to Advance Southwest Iowa. Both their general operating fund, which does include Kitchen Council. We combined what had been separate grants that was kind of a pain for everybody to administrate. So those are combined into $225,000 general operating, and then an additional $150,000 for the equipment that will be needed for the entrepreneurial center that's under development down at number 40 Arena Way. And I would also draw your attention to the grant to the Community Foundation for Western Iowa for the Women's Fund of Southwest Iowa, which of course does benefit a lot of our communities throughout the area. I also want to take a minute to thank you for allowing a couple of members of the conservation team to go to the Nature Summit last week. We scholarshiped that, so there weren't any direct costs, but I do understand that you allowing the team to go participate in that takes some resources as well. It was a great opportunity to learn what everybody around the state is doing and to talk a little bit about the the value of Hitchcock and the resources that are being put into the community and the effort that all of you have made to support conservation at Hitchcock here in Pioneer County. Any questions about any of our grants or anything else we're working on?
Brenda, will you take a look at the first one to Avoca? What is that?
Oh, firefighter.
A CBA, self-contained breathing apparatus.
Thank you very
It's almost
much,
scuba, but it's not underwater.
Brenda.
I beat you to it, I beat you to it. Susan.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser.
The Old Cities Fund has now got a new name, which
It's
is,
called Vibrant Rural Communities, most commonly referred to as VIBE.
just for the good of the bookkeepers, so we shall know what Vibrant Rural Communities is.
The 12 Scott Street building, Brenda, is there an estimate for the renovation on the whole thing?
Yeah, but I don't want to give you the wrong number, so I'm not going to tell you what it is. I know that they still have some fundraising to do, and our pledge is based on them raising the rest of the funds.
That'll be all new apartments?
It will be new apartments and retail on the first floor,
Okay.
retail commercial.
Good.
Brenda, thanks for supporting conservation also. It's really a big deal for the whole county. So, questions, anybody?
Nope. Thanks, Brenda.
Guys?
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your
Thank you,
time.
Brenda. Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely.
Short, sweet, and to the point, huh?
That's always.
You like those kind of meetings? Okay, next up, Friends of West Fair Committee, discussion and/or decision on capital project funding for West Fair. Hi. How we doing?
Great, morning.
Morning.
I'm Rick Killian, Ally Frost from the committee supporting the West Fair Capital Campaign is also here. Again, primarily here just to say thank you for your consideration of supporting our project. Do some renovation and upgrades that the fairgrounds is in dire need of. So again, any support we can get from the county board is greatly appreciated and will be a big help in us moving forward with our capital campaign.
And you got us everything we needed. That was a big deal, so thank you.
Rick, are you looking for a letter of intent? For
Yes,
a certain
that's what
amount?
our primary request is at this time this year, letter of intent.
I'll make a motion to approve a letter of intent for $125,000 to the West Fair Committee, Board, Association. What do you want, association?
Fair Association.
I think it's the West Fair Association is our legal name.
I'll second that. And we will, those funds come out of gaming, is that what we're taking on? The funds will come out of gaming and we'll have a, well, that's the motion.
But we're going to meet back when your fundraising starts and get an update this coming spring, or?
We hope to start the true capital campaign, the requesting portion and applying for grants after the first of the year, yes.
Okay, so we can get an update for our next budget cycle.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
thank
I
you.
got a motion by Supervisor Wickman and a second by Jorgensen to approve $125,000 out of gaming.
We're just
For the
approving the
Iowa-
letter of intent as well.
Letter of intent.
Okay.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Another quick one. Thanks, you guys. Hope you're real successful. Okay, next up, Jason Slack. Is he in here? There he is. Buildings and Grounds. Discussion and/or decision to sign certificate of substantial completion on courthouse addition project.
So, you guys have the certificate of substantial completion in front of you. It does list out the work that is incomplete, that is yet to be completed, but substantial completion has been reached on this project. We were occupying it in mid-June. All the equipment was started up, and we've been using it since then. I feel confident that the HVAC issues are mostly resolved, if not all resolved right now.
What's the status on the ADA lift?
So I just got an updated schedule from Mecco Henny Construction. They plan on have the railing completed on the 22nd of December.
I was talking about the ADA lift.
Oh, the lift.
It's listed that there's still issues that need to be resolved.
Yes, there are.
So what's the game plan for
So
resolving
we're
those?
waiting for TK Elevator to get back to us. It's just a waiting game with them. They're notoriously slow.
But that was from June and
Yeah,
it's
it's on the
November.
punch list. It has to be addressed before we release any retainage.
So the retainage amount that we're gonna hold on to is 37?
Currently, it is $170,637.
What's the amount we're gonna hold on to if we approve this?
170,000. Well, currently, we owe Mecco Henny Construction $726,291, and that includes the ramp.
Where are you pulling that number from?
That's the cost of the ramp addition. We haven't paid any progress payments towards the ramp yet.
Well, I'm looking at this, 745,714.66.
Here's the other one, Scott, that he's talking about. It's not in the packet.
Oh, it's not in the packet. That's why I don't say it. Okay. Okay, that makes sense then.
Yeah, that ADA lift is my big hangup.
Right. It's on the punch list. It's documented. It has to be taken care of before any retainage is released. This is just substantial completion. It is saying that the building is complete enough, sufficiently completed to the point where the owner can use it for its intended purpose. The ADA lift is on the punch list to get done. We're just waiting on that subcontractor to come in and do the work.
But by citing the certificate of substantial completion, we don't mitigate that. We don't eliminate that responsibility.
No, we do not, and it states in there that needs to be done specifically.
Are there parts that we're looking for? Is there?
It's workmanship issues, and there are parts, yes.
I share your frustration.
It's been one of the biggest bones of contention. Okay, what do you want to do, board? They will still have their retention funds.
Yeah, this is not a release of any retainage. This is just saying that it was complete enough for us to use it for its intended purpose, and for the most part, you know, we are using it. We have been since June.
You want to make a motion? You want to discuss?
Well, I'll make the motion to sign the certificate for substantial completion.
Looking for a second.
Is that the only item that's out there that we know of?
The ADA lift?
Yeah.
No, it's not. There's a number of items that are still out there. The ADA lift, they have some holes to patch around structural steel on the second floor of the B-wing. And that's a minor issue. Our generator annunciator panel that's supposed to be installed in the maintenance shop is not done yet. It hasn't come in. And there's a number of issues like that, and they're all documented in the punch list. They're also documented in this certificate of substantial completion.
What is the total that's outstanding then?
The total
that's outstanding on that punch list?
of items,
Yeah,
I don't have a number,
road breakdown.
no.
Offices are being used as we speak, right?
Correct.
I mean, people are coming in and out.
Yes, and the issues with their HVAC in the addition have been pretty much resolved. And everything's functioning over there as it should with the HVAC.
Do you think there's enough funds there to handle any of the items that are on the punch list?
I think there is currently, yes.
Okay. I'll second. I concur with Susan. We need to get that border in Canada opened up so we can get our parts.
And we'll continue to pressure them to get it done.
Okay, I got a motion and a second to sign the certificate of substantial completion on the courthouse addition project. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Next up, Jason Slack. We're here to approve change order number 1 on the courthouse parking lot improvement project. Jason.
This one's a credit to the county. Initially, HGM had fly ash treatment at a 12-inch depth included in the contract. The fly ash treatment was not needed for the parking lot, so that saved the county $36,490. When we were pouring that sidewalk around that parking lot, the city stepped in and said it needed to be 6 inches thick, which was, we had it planned to be 4 inches thick. City came in and said it needed to be 6. That added the cost to the county of $9,784.
Didn't the city approve the permit
Yes,
at 4 inches?
they did, yeah, I believe so. I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but they want all the sidewalks downtown to be 6 inches thick.
Keep in mind that that sidewalk belongs to the city. That we tore out.
Yeah.
You're talking along
The east and the
Yeah.
south side.
yeah.
Well, why does it belong to the city?
Doesn't that sidewalk belong to the city?
My sidewalk breaks, I gotta fix it. My house.
Well, that's because you got all kinds of money.
No, it ain't the reason at all.
I believe the code says
you
to
know,
the
your
back of the curb is
Yeah,
what we own.
Your property line doesn't meet the sidewalk. You're responsible for it, but that's not what property is.
I'll make,
They make you shovel it too.
I'll make the motion to approve change order number 1 on the courthouse parking lot improvement project.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the courthouse change order from the parking lot improvement project. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
Jason, can you send us like weekly updates? I hate to be a micromanager, but just to let us know what progress is moving forward.
I will.
So that we can get,
I'll be sending out the schedule that John sent me this morning for the courthouse ramp in the addition.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Matthew, I'm not gonna say your last name because I can't pronounce it. Say it for me, would you? Okay. Utility Scale Development Manager, and Julie Drennan, Development Outreach Manager, RWE Clean Energy, presentation of wind energy concerns and setback ramifications. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you, no problem. Thank you. I
Appreciate
just
it.
want to hand this out. It's supposed to be one of the slides in the deck, but it must have been deleted. It's just a letter from the Department of Defense that I sent to get their informal approval. I will bring it up throughout the presentation. Thank you.
I'm gonna try this.
All right. Morning, everyone. As you know, I'm Matthew Spakopnicha, the Development Manager for RWE's Clean Energy Potawatomi Wind Project.
I'm Julie Drennan. As you know, I'm the outreach manager for this project.
And we're here to talk about the setback ramifications, and then just overall citizen concerns. I'm following the majority of Americans that have stage fright when it comes to public speaking, so I will be reading from a script to help me along. Just stop me at any point if you have any questions.
But we're going to have to talk loud so everybody in the room can hear.
Thank you. RWE is a electric generation company that's been producing energy for over 125 years. In the US, RWE Energy is the fourth largest producer of renewable energy. We have been active in the United States since 2007, and we own and operate more than 30 wind farms across the country, consisting of 3,200 wind turbines. Here in Pottawatomie County, we are working on a proposed 200 megawatt wind farm in the north center of the county that will consist roughly of 40 to 60 turbines, depending on the make and model of the turbine that is ultimately selected. These will be sited throughout 20,000 acres, 20,228 acres to be exact at this time of land signed onto the project. For setback ramifications, let's begin with the impacts of several setbacks, or various setbacks. I would like to work through how a project looks from a voluntarily signed land to the resulting buildable acres when taking into consideration the setbacks. What you see here is an example of all the land signed on an RWE Camp Creek Wind project in McDonough County, Illinois, which was just permitted last month. It looks pretty good to me. There's a lot of landowners that are signed up. You can see pretty connected and landowner support in the area. There are different aspects that need to be taken into consideration when siting turbines. In regards to setbacks, here in Figure 1, you will see that the original project area was drawn in that deep blue outline around the concentration of higher wind speeds, which is the orange and yellow area in that Figure 1. But you can see here that voluntarily landowners' participation has repositioned the project boundary to what you see in Figure 2, 3, and 4. While looking at Figure 2, you will see the setbacks from residents, other structures like barns, for example, pointed out in a small tan color. Sorry, it's small, but there's a pink buffer around those structures where turbines cannot be sited. When we jump over to Figure 3, the buildable area shrinks even more by pulling in the setbacks from the public right-of-way, railroads, highways, communication microwave paths, pipelines, transmission lines, wetlands, and wildlife, just to name a few. You can see a little bit of the green sign land poking out, but look at the combined setbacks in Figure 4, which shows all the green sign land representing the buildable area. And on the next slide, you'll see the final map of the resulting buildable area.
And I want to point out too, just to give an example of what some of these are, that green circle on the bottom, that's an eagle's nest. So that's how much land that would take out if we observe an active eagle's nest.
As you can see, we removed the setbacks I mentioned previously, and what's left are the areas that would be considered sitable for hosting a turbine. But that's not even all the considerations we take into account when siting for turbines. As you can see the list here on the right, you will also see the second bullet point listed as the FAA and the DoD input is needed for turbine siting. I would like to quickly point out that I received the letter that I handed you previously. It's an informal approval for the project area from the Department of Defense. That letter was from August 21st of this year, stating their initial informal approval. Later in the development process, I will send the project's final turbine layout to the DoD and FAA for their formal review and approval. I wanted to provide you with a high-level view of RWE's project area, in which you can see the cities and townships that would be included in this project. The project spans from Minden over to Avoca, down to Hancock, and then back over to Underwood and back up to Minden. So like a rhombus type of shape. Since the beginning of the project in 2018, the number of leases signed so far is 95. Those 95 leases make up 154 landowners, in which 75% of them live in Potawatomi County today, with another 5% in Iowa. Since 2018, we have paid out over $1.5 million in landowner development rent payments, and we are looking forward to paying landowners this additional revenue stream on their farm and operation that they have now as the project moves forward in the development process. Just to note, we chose this area because of the market demand, sufficient wind speeds. We look for 7 meters per second and above, which is 15.6 miles per hour. Large open spaces, proximity to a transmission line, and landowner support, which is strong in our project area.
And I have a question here, but I want to return to it later. We'll just keep going with the presentation. And it's a question about, someone had mentioned setbacks from cities previously, or it was brought up. So I want to save that for the end, but just want to flag that I put it here.
Now that we have the orientation of the project area, we'll discuss the setbacks. What you see here is a setback language comparisons between the recommended Planning and Zoning Commission, Barrett Homes, and RWE. I will not run through each one as that has been done so in past meetings. You'll see the language on the next couple slides. Here's our starting point with all the land signed in RWE's Potawatomi Wind project area. The slide is intentionally blurred to protect landowners' privacy, but it gives you the sense of all the starting point of when we consider setbacks from the land that isn't green within the project area. This is the resulting build area from the setback language proposed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Out of the 20,228 acres, only 9.3 acres remain that could be used for a wind project. This would make the project unbuildable. Next, we look at the recommended setback language from Barrett Home. As you can see, there are now 1,444 acres of buildable land for possible turbine locations. Not all of this land would host turbines, but the acres help with other setbacks that we talked about previously that allows for turbine placement flexibility if there are other considerations that take land out of the potential buildable area. I would like to state for the record that RWE doesn't welcome Barrett Home setback language from non-participating homes, non-participating property line, and from the public right-of-way.
We do welcome it. Yeah, I think it sounded like you said doesn't. We do. This is a welcome setback, and it is industry standard.
And finally, I wanted to demonstrate a middle-of-the-road option, which is 1,650 feet from a non-participating home and 800 feet from a non-participating property line. This is an increase in setbacks from the Barrett Home recommendation, so now we have 914 acres of buildable acres. This is still a buildable project. Its size means that some of the smaller acreage landowners will no longer have the option for receiving a turbine. One important thing to note as well, when we provide the economic benefit numbers of the $62.6 million over 30 years, that number is based on a 200 megawatt wind farm. Setback increases can decrease the wind farm capacity, and it is likely that they will here. So the overall wind farm size and corresponding revenue benefit will decrease as well. In the end, we are asking the county to meet in the middle on the setbacks in order to allow the 154 landowners in our wind project to have the opportunity to participate in a wind farm that they so choose.
If you, if the county is interested in thinking about this from a ratio perspective, like we've heard 1.1, for example, this 800 is about 1.3. So if you wanted it to scale with the size of the turbine, that's just for reference, what that could look like. But you can see as we toggle here, hopefully you can see, like it just decreases ever so slightly between the two. But it is still a decrease.
All right, we'll get into some concerns. First, one question folks commonly ask is how many landowners live locally. Again, that number is 75% of our 154 landowners. Some of them have already attended county meetings. They are ready to live and farm around wind turbines. As a 200 megawatt project, this wind farm will provide the county, townships, and schools within the project area with over $62 million in new tax revenue over 30 years, lifetime of the project. That's just over $2 million annually. The revenue breakdown is based on the amount of infrastructure in each respective school district and township. The project would also provide Potawatomi RWE project landowners with a steady source of income of over $25 million over 30 years, and it will create 200 to 300 construction jobs and 6 to 8 long-term local jobs as well. The new tax revenue specifically going to the Potawatomi County government is over $26 million over 30 years. That's over $800,000 annually. This money is used solely on how the county would like. Based on the previous presentations we have seen from the county, this amount is about 40% of Potawatomi's annual casino revenue and over half of the funding used for the city bridge funding. An additional benefit is the RWE paid road upgrades and repairs. For RWE's Radford's Run wind project located in Decatur, Illinois, we upgraded and repaired 80 miles worth of roads, worth $1.2 million in RWE funding. In Potawatomi, there will be roads identified and approved by the county through a road use agreement that we will identify and upgrade at roads at the start of construction along with upgrade and repair after construction. There may be roads that the county or towns have wanted to upgrade or repair for a long time. We'll get to that anyway with our funding within the project area. Next, I want to address citizens' questions of wind energy as a domestic industry. I want to demonstrate the importance of the wind industry in Iowa, as manufacturing is Iowa's largest industry contributing $31 billion or 17% of the state's annual $180 billion GDP. I want to point out that the business and jobs here in Iowa nationwide when it comes to the wind industry. The wind industry jobs can be operation crew members, construction workers, electrical and civil engineers, concrete and gravel workers, fuel transport workers, and of course manufacturing workers, the several different components that are produced here in Iowa. As you can see, there are over 10,000 Iowans working in the wind energy industry to date.
One of the other concerns that and questions that we had heard was about the cost of wind energy. Many utility companies have said they've been able to stabilize rates with wind energy just because there's no cost for the input. You know, there's a lot of things that affect electric rates, so we're not going to say that it's a direct causal because there's so much that goes into it. But for what it's worth, there is a financial firm, Lazard, that does this annual study on the levelized cost of energy. So when you take away subsidies and you take away tax credits, what you're left with is this levelized cost of dollars per megawatt hour. And as you can see by the circle here, wind is among the lowest cost, with actually, it's similar to solar, which is also among the lowest cost here, but it's compared to conventional sources, and this is for new generation. They have some areas here like the gold diamonds that indicate just refurbishment. But you can see it is quite expensive to build a new source of power. Coal plants are expensive, nuclear plants are expensive. And we support the whole grid. It's just, we want to have the facts straight about the cost per megawatt hour of wind energy. One of the other questions that has come up a lot is safety, and I know that we had a speaker at the last hearing who did address this from a fire safety perspective. We have a landowner in the Walnut Project who spoke to ice throw incidents. There's not a ton of publicly available data out there, mostly because it's proprietary for what the turbine manufacturers have for ice detection, ice mitigation systems, and even fire suppression systems. But for ice throw, we do have a study here. This was done by a different wind company that I want to demonstrate the science that goes into this, that you can look to an area and say, we anticipate a certain number of days per year where conditions are right for ice throw. So you can identify it, you can turn off the turbine blades at those times. There are other ice detection systems or weight imbalance detection systems on turbines that work very well to identify when there's an ice throw situation and will stop the blades. Fire, with regard to fire, we know that the numbers are rare or low and that it's a rare incidence. These numbers here, the 1 in 2,000 and 1 in 7,000, come from a company that is trying to sell fire suppression systems to turbine manufacturers, so it's reasonable to think they might be a little inflated. That company is called Firetrace. And this, even so, it's at 0.013% to 0.05% of, of turbines will experience a fire. And that was pulled from a recent Wind Systems magazine from this year. Anything to add on fire? One of the other things, and as a conservationist myself, I take this one very seriously. One of the other things we hear is about the carbon intensity and the not environmentally friendliness of wind farms and wind turbines. This source, so this is Vestas, a turbine manufacturer, is calculating the carbon payback or the energy payback period of a turbine. The most intense period of energy use and carbon consumption for a wind farm is construction. Yes, there's energy use in decommissioning. I know that's come up as a question too. Even through the whole life cycle, construction operations and disposal, that break-even point or that carbon neutral point is 5 to 8 months estimated for a wind turbine. Simply because the inputs, once it's operational, there's no emissions in that generation of electricity. Another thing that has come up is sound. That we've heard some people say it's something they get used to. It's something that just kind of blends in with the wind. I know sound is very subjective, but just to contextualize it here among a lot of other sound emitting aspects of our daily life, wind turbines do fall on the low end of that sound, the sound emissions, and that sound does dissipate with your distance from the wind farm. So not everyone who lives near a wind farm is going to experience the 50 decibels even that's identified in your ordinance. So we heard from landowners who farm around turbines who say they have said they get used to it. They're experiencing it right next to the turbine. So even that level is higher than someone who's positioned living outside of the wind farm. But this is all modeled ahead of time based on assumptions about the turbine and what we know from the manufacturer, and then it is tested as well to make sure that we're hitting the county specified level.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up that we heard concern about cattle not liking or going by turbines, and you can see from this picture and another couple that will go through that the cattle actually see the benefit of providing shade on a nice summer day.
And these are sheep right here, but we have heard that they will just hang out in the shadow of the turbine. And actually, it kind of irritates ranchers, but it's still, they just herd them up. But they worry about them damaging the turbine, but there's no, they're just gonna rub their self on it. It's not bad. And here's another one. This is actually Australia or New Zealand, this wind farm, but they're right in that line of shade. And this is, now they're kind of far away from it, but this is a pasture that has cattle in it, and this is actually our wind farm. It's in Texas, it's called Boiling Springs, and that rancher has said they're just fine. Cows, we know, we do work in the dairy area, we work in Wisconsin on some wind farms too. There is, initially cows don't like a lot of change, but then they just get used to it. It becomes part of, their pasture life. And we do have ranchers in Nebraska who have said the same about how cows they don't care once they're up. So on the, going back to the conservation topic, I do want to address bird concerns. all development, all forms of energy and all development does have an impact on wildlife. And wind energy is no different in that regard. We are held to a high standard by the state and federal agencies that ask us to submit, our mitigation strategies and plans, and also show that we've done the surveys to know where birds are. And we will have like survey spotters out there to look for birds. And then, I'm gonna go into some numbers here, I'll cover this briefly. So the American Bird Conservancy did put out these numbers this is estimated, so they are not counting these number of birds literally. So they're making estimates based on a sample size. When these numbers first came out and we saw the number for turbines, I was working at a conservation nonprofit at the time, and we were like, what the heck, this is so much, like we were pretty disappointed. So I'm giving you the high end here. U.S. Fish and Wildlife has estimated the turbine collision number less, but even at this high end, we see there's so many other threats to birds in our daily lives, in our landscape, and I just want to contextualize that for you, that we live in a world that does impact birds, and turbines do, but they're on the low end compared to other impacts.
All right, compaction and disturbance of drain tile will happen on signed land where turbines are sited. We will decompact the land, and the general contractor will work with the title contractor to replace tile. We will take landowner suggestions for preference of tile contractors. We also work with them to receive their tile maps, so we can mitigate the amount of tile that we do disturb. Also, you can see the picture on that left side. That's the total area that's taken up on average from a wind turbine. It's 1,085 feet, or less than 1/3 of an acre of land. When we go to landowners saying, okay, we identified the location of the turbine on your land, we want their input of where do they want that access road to be on their property, because and that's where it can go, say, from 1/3 of an acre of land to maybe an acre or even more. It's an access road. Because the diameter of the wind farm is only 18 feet in diameter, the access road is making up that majority of the acres used for the wind, the access road, and the amount of land it's taking up. But it's nice getting the landowners involved at that point, because they'll tell us to use the tree line or follow the property line however they want to, because what they see is we maintain the road for the 30 years for them, snow removal we control, but they're able to position that road to get their equipment out to the field easier and how they like. We've even heard at the end of decommissioning processes, it's our responsibility to remove the infrastructure, the turbine, and even the roads as well. But a lot of landowners, we want their input at the beginning of the project, because at the end, during decommissioning, they'll tell us, I want the road there, it helps me get my equipment out to the field easier. They'll keep the road, and then it's their responsibility going forward. Just wanted to state that.
And I wanted to add, I know there's genuine concerns about soil compaction, tile damage, which we've addressed, but I want to be clear that those are only on signed land and road use agreement approved transportation paths. So we can't just traverse someone's land and they didn't want a wind turbine, and then we crush their tile and then walk away. It's going to be on signed land. There's provisions in the lease contract that says we go and repair drain tile, we decompact soil. There is an effect on soil. Construction's messy, it's hard, but we take care of that in the lease, and we do pay for crop loss. So.
All right, so thank you. I want to restate our ask for a setback option that would allow us to build a project. I hope this information that we have provided is beneficial to you. And I just wanted to, again, ask if I can submit that DOD letter that I provided to you into the public record, as it might have been deleted within the slide that I wanted to show that letter. So thank you. And are there any questions?
Where are your turbines built?
where are they built? So it depends on the manufacturer, the OEM. So there, if we use, say, Siemens Gamesa, that will be built, at least the blades, in Lee County, Iowa by Burlington. We do have, I want to say Vestas is in North Dakota, and they also have a plant in, I think it's near Tampa, Florida. It all depends on the manufacturer. I mean, components can be manufactured here, but maybe just like the generator, so maybe manufactured in, say, Vestas is out of, I believe, the Netherlands. Siemens Gamesa is out of Germany, where RWE is from. So maybe some of those components come from there, but there is a lot of components that are manufactured here in the States.
What about China?
I don't think we use those manufacturers.
There's not a lot coming out of China for, I mean, I can't guarantee that a nut or bolt in the turbine, isn't from, I guess, I don't know, it's just, we're a global economy in terms of steel and trade and such, but, it's not, there's no, to my knowledge, blade manufacturers in China, and the nacelle, I'm most familiar with European, manufacturers for those parts.
I will share that out of our, I think, 32, maybe even 35 wind farms that we have, our lower ones, maybe there's only 2 per jurisdiction. Wanted us to put 2 wind farms up. Out of the 35 total, we've used GE, General Electric for 15 of them. So, I mean, maybe GE has a plant in a different country. I don't know if that's where they produce those parts or if it's all within GE in the United States. But that is one of even the majority of our turbines that we have picked on our projects are GE.
Anybody got questions?
I've got a few of them, but I'll go last if everybody else is done.
Well, help me out here just a little bit. You think generating electricity through wind generation will replace coal, or replace nuclear, or work in conjunction with all of that?
No, it's kind of how I see a lot of things in life. You have to have diversification. We're a growing population in this country. We need more energy, and we need all the energy generating that we have today to continue to support the people living here and growing. And this is just an avenue that I see my worth of putting up these projects. I'm just adding to the electricity capacity that's helping out our country overall.
Okay. Are there any wind farms in India, in China that you know of?
Yes, China actually has the largest wind park or farm in the world. Our largest here in the United States is, I want to say, close to 800 megawatts, where theirs is like 1.5 gigawatts, maybe double our largest. So they do have the largest wind farm. And I'm sure there's wind farms all over. We're working in 35 different countries around the globe. China's not one of them.
I don't have any additional questions.
I'm just gonna pop in a few. How far do you need, will you have to be away from a turbine when you hear nothing?
Well, I think it depends on wind direction. Also, are you standing right next to corn that's as tall as you? I mean,
No, I'm in my house at night and I'm sleeping. How far away does the turbine have to be so I don't hear it?
You're not, I mean, this is a subjective question. You shouldn't hear it compared to outside wind. You shouldn't hear it compared to other noises. But I think we're measuring it towards what the ordinance is asking for. So, I think your question is difficult to answer. I don't know the actual.
Yeah, well, you said wind turbine is 45 to 55 decibels. Were you measuring that at? At the base of the turbine?
It's from the center of the turbine. No, it's from out to the home. So for your ordinance, you have 50 decibels, and we're measuring it just on the outside of the home. Yeah, 25 feet from because there's reverb from the home on the instruments that we use, so it's 25 feet from the exterior wall of the home.
How far away is the home?
However far it needs to be to hit that decibel rating. So we place the turbines accordingly. if our measurements show that the turbine has to be 1,800 feet from the home to hit that level, then that's where we place it. So, yeah.
How far do you need to be away from a turbine where you don't have the flicker going through your window?
So not all turbine, or not all homes are gonna experience shadow flicker. I don't know, this is a mathematical question of, where the home is in relation to the curvature of the earth and the angle of the sun. But, homes that experience shadow flicker, we also calculate that out to say the placement cannot allow that home to have more than 30 hours a year, in ideal conditions. But there's no absolute number, because it all depends on where they're positioned in relation to that turbine and the shadow it would make. But not all homes with proximity to a wind farm will experience shadow flicker. It all depends on that placement.
What is the proposed height of the turbines that you would consider for this project, from the base to the top of the blade at its highest point?
Yep, definitely. So the manufacturers we're looking at, say anywhere from 590 to 650.
So 650 feet. Okay. How many do you plan to put in your project?
40 to 60.
Did you notify landowners in the area of the project when you came? Or did you just start approaching people who you thought would be in your project area?
Would you like me to answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So in 2000,
Oh, yeah, you have to introduce yourself.
Jim Eastler, right-of-way agent for RWE. So do you need any more information on that?
No.
So, so as I started the project in 2018, I got a layout of, at that time, with a different project manager than Matthew, but Matthew does the same thing, of the area that we're focusing on, which was huge. So no, I do not have any idea of what a landowner thinks about wind. Yes, no, any of that.
No, I meant,
So-
I asked, did you notify anybody of the project area?
At the beginning, no, I literally went out and just took a list of landowners and start contacting them.
It's safe to assume that everyone knows about it now.
It's safe to assume that everyone would know about it. As I went through the majority of these townships and done that, yeah, I have talked to literally 3 times as many landowners that we have signed. Some of the smaller landowners, as in I say small as in 10 acres or less, would not fall into that contact. But 40 acres plus, 20 acres plus would. So yes, the majority of those people do know about it just from direct contact from myself. As I said, started in 2018. I was here for 3 years, going out and gathering easements for this project. So it's been a long time, and yeah, I know a lot of landowners out there.
You said they don't have fire suppression systems in them, right? Isn't that what you said?
Well, so not exactly. It depends on the procurement process. Usually when a fire happens, it's not necessarily a suppression system, it's just a blade stop. So they would know, there's an operations team that's here all the time, there's folks on call. There would be various indicators. There is a smoke detection system in turbines. And then there would be, I don't know if there's heat sensors, but I've heard that proposed. But it's not a fire suppression system per se. I know Fire Trace, the quote I had, they try to sell fire suppression systems. But it's up to the developer if they want to do that when they procure the turbine.
And a fire in a turbine is primarily caused from a lubrication problem?
It's plastics usually that if it's not lightning, it's a plastic component that burns out or overheats or something. But the gearbox, the lubrication oil should not be, and it isn't. In talking with JP, who spoke from RWE last week, it is not starting in the oil compartment, like where the lubrication oil is. When you see fires, it's mostly around the nose and the blades. So it starts from a plastic part that is burned out, and then that oil chamber is so well contained. You don't usually get fire starting there.
I don't have anything.
Scott?
No.
Good?
Well, just go back to 2 slides here. Oh, no, we need to go forward. No, keep going,
Oh,
keep going.
are you looking at that screen?
Yeah,
That's way at the end.
okay.
Oh, you want,
The
you
one
don't,
with the dots and stuff on it?
There you go.
oh, this?
Yeah. What, who,
No, no.
who are the highlighted, what, all the acronyms and the highlighted stuff? Help me out there a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I highlighted those. I tried to match up the language for the zoning and planning recommended language, Barrett Homes and RWEs. The colors should correspond with the, I guess, the like language in each one.
The what language?
The similar language.
Okay,
So yellow to yellow, green to green. We didn't want to go too long on this today, so we include this in the slide deck for your consideration, but we didn't want to,
okay.
but it's equal comparisons.
It's equal comparisons, and I just wanted to point out with the purple, unlike the zoning and planning, or the planning and zoning commission, you see the CWES, I believe in the ordinance that stands for commercial wind energy systems. And you can see our language up down below, the WTG, that is the wind turbine generator. If the ordinance, gets voted on and approved, we would have to switch that because top language is saying that any piece of the wind turbine, not just the turbine, but the underground collection lines, has to be set back a mile from the homes, the right-of-ways, everywhere else, which would make that no buildable land 0. So I was just pointing out with the purple that it should be changed down to the WTG. The turbine itself is what has to be, in this case, our proposal, 1,650 feet away, 800 feet away from the non-participating lot line.
Yeah.
So could there possibly have been or a 4th language up there to compare the state's language for people that don't have ordinances or zoning in their counties?
I'm not familiar just because counties take precedent here, so I'm not familiar.
I understand that, but if the county doesn't have it, is there a state ordinances for your
That might be a good question
operations?
for the energy folks. Because they work, yeah. So, no,
None?
not.
There was a proposal that went across the state legislature, but it did not pass.
Okay.
Supervisor Belts, may I address that, Mr. Chair?
Yes, you can.
So, I'm Merlin Mars, I served in the state legislature and also as a county supervisor. So the general answer to your question is no. The state regulates in regard, as you know, the tax structure, how a county can by ordinance set up the tax structure with the 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, up to 30, built based upon the construction cost of the turbine. But the state is for the most part silent in regard to a statewide minimum standard. So it is truly a responsibility and of the county to choose. And if you would, I actually pulled the ISAC data one time working with ISAC, and they did this through a query, which you folks could request from ISAC too, being ISAC members. Actually pulled a statewide numbers of where the turbines were and where they weren't. And for the most part, turbines were always located in counties that had passed the tax structure, and counties with 0 turbines were counties that basically had not passed the tax structure. And then in regard to setback distances, decommissioning, all of that stuff, that's all left to the county level, which is why your planning and zoning has taken it up and given a recommendation to you for consideration.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do have a question about the airports. We seem to be concerned about the Council Bluffs Airport. It's growing greatly. I don't think your project is by it, but the others are.
Correct, yeah, so from past projects that we have submitted to the FAA, they send out comments to all the airports in the area. When you're looking at larger regional airports, they have greater setback distance from a little bit more smaller airports. For example, large airports like right here in Omaha or like O'Hare or Midway, looking at those distances, you're looking at the maximum. So from the tarmac landing and takeoff, 5 miles parallel, and then from a perpendicular to those tarmacs, you have to be 3 miles. And then the smaller the airport, the smaller the radius. So maybe Council Bluffs, you only need to be maybe 3 miles north and south, and maybe 1.5 east and west. That is determined when I submit to the FAA. They'll let me know, hey, your wind farms, the overall wind farm is good, but hey, these 5 down here are too close to the airport, so you're gonna have to use your alternates locations for those turbines. Our closest project boundary with land signed is over 7 miles away from the Council Bluffs area. So we feel like we are, at this point, definitely outside of, I guess, the hazard area.
You mentioned something about incorporated towns or unincorporated. We only have one in your area, correct?
That's
Unincorporated?
Unincorporated would
that
be
Bentley?
Bentley.
Yeah, so are you, I heard this mentioned, I don't know where you're at in your decision process on this, but it was said that maybe you were considering a setback from cities, and so we wanted to clarify that you're looking at incorporated and not unincorporated.
This board and the small towns have worked really hard to grow our little towns, and they're on the verge of taking off, and a lot of them really are. And we don't want to stifle them at all. I mean, that's a big concern of everyone's. So you guys think of that too back there, so.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Like, just double check.
That's where a lot of county growth will come from, is our little towns.
And I see a question here, I just wanna say it is, just for reference, it is a statewide standard in Illinois now to have a 1.5 mile buffer from incorporated. I don't think they have unincorporated in that. So just as an example of what another state has done, so.
Real quick, the electrical grid, okay, these things generate electricity. They put it into the electrical grid. So really, there's no local determination of where that electricity could go to, is that correct?
Well, yes and no. I mean, electricity works it goes to the path of least resistance. So if energy is needed locally, it will be provided locally to a substation and dissipate locally. But if energy is not needed, then it can go throughout the transmission line wherever it needs to go to be used. People ask us that, and it can power the very lights in this room. We don't know, because when the energy is put on the grid, it's with all the other energy components that's generated, or ways energy is generated. It's not set aside just to be used in other places. What we're selling to, say, maybe a company here in Council Bluff or in Omaha, or say the Menards depot out in Shelby, if they want to buy, we're selling the commodity. So if they want to buy our electricity, we'll sell it to them. But our electricity is going to be used, it could be as locally as possible, but yeah, it could be sent to maybe a neighboring state, just like the oil,
But it's not sent to, it's on the grid, just like we might have electrons here from North Dakota or Ohio, like the electrons are just here, but we can't ship it.
State used to be an exporter, not an importer. I assume we still are an exporter of energy, electrical energy.
There is a stat that 60% of Iowa's energy comes from wind. So you are a leader in
But I mean, as
electricity
far as
produced by
overall energy, electric energy, we're an exporter.
Sorry, there's a follow-up.
Okay, the wind doesn't blow all the time. So you need for wind generation, you need a backup other than wind. Is that correct? Am I right, Marcia?
Need is case-based, so you don't always need that. There's the reason for the proliferation of wind farms right now is because there is a use of that electricity now, but certainly it is helpful to the grid to have a storage component. Wind is most productive, wind energy is at night. So a lot of developers are looking to site storage near wind farms now to store that electricity generated at night, dispatch it to the grid later. But we, the industry has just totally boomed without that storage component. So I think it's fair to say there's a need to add electricity to the grid, but I don't know if the need of storage is like a prohibiting factor.
Okay, and for these wind generators to work, they have to be hooked up to power. I mean, if there was no power provided to that wind generator, it would not operate. Is that correct? If the power goes out, that wind generator cannot operate. Is that what I understand?
Well, wind would push the blades.
Yeah,
I guess.
if we lock the blades would stay still, but if we just turn off, it would still spin. It's just not gonna produce energy if we don't turn it on.
But still, they require power to generate power.
No, I think they're bringing the power within themselves. So if it's spinning, it's operating.
I have a nephew who worked for Mid-America on their wind generation projects, and he said that they require power to generate power. That's what he was telling me. So I don't know. So if there was no electricity, or if electrical power was out, these wind generators couldn't generate.
I don't know
Do I understand that
but
correctly?
I will look into that and give you a response before the 29th
All right.
for you.
I will say, if the power is out, you don't, the grid operator likely wouldn't want energy coming onto the grid until they figured out where the stop is. So I know you're giving a hypothetical, but in that case, you wouldn't necessarily want to be flooding the grid with electricity from a source anyway. But I see your point about it, the scenario that,
All right.
so we can look into that.
Thank you.
Okay, is that it? Yeah,
I do
go
have a
ahead,
quick
Matt.
question. Thank you. Just for the 29th, just so I'm aware. So there's a recess on that public hearing. So does that mean that everyone that did speak will not have the opportunity to speak again because it's a recess? So everyone that talked for the 5 minutes, I'm just asking because it starts at 6 p.m. If we're gonna have the same people speak that they once, I guess, already did, it'll last
I'd like
maybe
to see
4 or 5
new
hours.
people
New people?
speaking.
Okay.
I don't think we should.
Yeah, we're trying to get a consensus of
Yeah.
of those that we have to answer to.
Mhm.
That's what I want to see.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to say so I can prepare.
Okay,
Perfect. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Thanks for your
Thank you, Board.
presentation.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Next up, Perry Finch, Senior Associate, Renewable Development and Envergy. Presentation on setbacks and wind turbine siting impact.
Yes, thank you for having us out here today. So again, my name's Harry Finch. I hope everybody in the back can hear me as well. I'm the project developer for our wind farm here in eastern Potawatomi County. We're calling it our Overland Route Wind Farm. It's a 300 megawatt proposed project, and we're really excited about it. We're a couple of years in, so I really appreciate the board allowing me to come here and give a brief presentation. I understand we're in a holiday week, so I'll try and keep it quick and we can all get on to Thanksgiving. Before I jump into the detailed map that you all have in front of you, I felt it'd be helpful to give an introduction on Energy. So we've been active in the state developing since 2003. Our first project came online in Iowa, our Victory project, not too far from here in 2006. We're a Midwest based out of Chicago. We like to say that Iowa is our bread and butter, but really Midwest wind is kind of where we made our name. Over those 20 years, we've built over 110 wind projects and more than 200 energy projects, primarily in the United States, but also across the world. We've also been a big part of the story of wind here in the state of Iowa. Close to 30% of the operating turbines in this state were actually Invenergy developed. So we like to think that as an organization, there are few that understand the challenges and implications of responsibly siting wind farms here in the state. So with that, there are a couple items that I wanted to jump into that I know have been referenced over the last few months, and understanding hopefully that I don't repeat anything that you've already heard today. We like to take an approach that is founded on communication and cooperation with different stakeholders, whether it's directly with our landowners, with non-participants and businesses in the area, and then also directly with the county herself. And one concern that has been raised a few times that I think is a good example of this is with aerial spraying. These two images here are projects in Ohio. This one's further out west, but we have a lot of interaction with our turbines and aerial sprayers, whether they're participants or not. In fact, I believe Merlin back there does do aerial spraying in the middle of a wind turbine farm that his family still farms. There's two ways that we can get ahead of it, whether it's in the siting process. We can work, again, whether they're participants or non-participants, on understanding flight paths where there are areas of concern, to see if we can adjust the siting at all to make it easy as possible. And then during the operation of the project, we ask that you keep open lines of communication with our O&M team, which again are on site and always available. What's great about aerial spraying and wind turbines is that they work really well together, in the sense that the wind turbines are not going to be as active when wind speeds are a lot lower and it's a lot easier to spray. So if the case is needed, we can curtail the turbines for a set amount of time, specific ones in that area, to make sure that everybody's being as safe as possible. And again, that comes down to our sort of focus on being as cooperative and easy to work with as possible. And that bleeds over into how we interact with the county and the broader community. And I think a good example of this that I believe the folks from RWE touched on a bit, but also a concern that's been raised is how we interact with the roads and public infrastructure during construction. This is something that we take very seriously, and we do a lot of expansion projects, and so we understand the value of making bold claims on how we'll perform in meeting them or exceeding them. So the road use agreement is essentially an agreement in excess of often what's required in the ordinance, and the main tagline is that Invenergy is always going to be responsible for any damages, and importantly for all the subsequent repairs. And importantly, the county and the community are never going to be caught holding the cost for those changes. It's developed in close concert with the respective boards, but also the county engineer. We start with a pre-construction road survey to establish baseline conditions. It's important for us, for the safety of the site, both of the crews and the public, that we're not sending turbine deliveries down roads we don't find are sufficient. So whether it's upgrading roads or bridges or culverts as needed, we want to make sure that we're able to do it safely. From there, we'll develop whole routes that specify directions, perhaps times or seasonality of where exactly we can send what types of equipment. And usually in Iowa, because of the seasons, we're only doing turbine deliveries between June and as late as August. But in the cases that it overlaps with the school year, we'll work with the local schools to ensure that we're not doing deliveries at any point in time near when kids are being picked up and dropped off. Finally, we'll set up some form of financial assurance for the lifetime of the construction. And again, it's something agreed upon with the county, whether it's for a credit bond, corporate guarantee, that we can't close out until we've met the punch list of repairs that we're required to do. So again, the broad tagline is ensuring that we're working with the county appropriately to minimize impacts on the community and maximize the safety of our crew and of the general public. It's a similar line of thinking that we use to approach decommissioning agreements. Again, this is generally speaking above and beyond what's required in the ordinance. It functions a little bit different since it's not a temporary, year and a half long agreement, but for potentially 40 plus years. But it outlines cost estimates and a process to regularly update them throughout the project life, as well as detailing from individual turbines to the whole project how we plan to take all of our facilities down. An important part of that is allowing us to work directly with landowners Oftentimes, you know, we always work with our landowners on the location and direction of access roads. Sometimes they would prefer that we leave all or a portion of that road once we're done. A decommissioning agreement allows us to meet our requirements to you, while also being as helpful to our landowners as possible. And again, the intent is the same. The county and the community is never going to be left holding the bag for any cost of decommissioning or any incidental damages that may come from it. So I know that was a lot of information to throw at you, so we'll get here into the maps. I appreciate RWE showing kind of the 30,000 foot view. This is one that's much more pared down, and you'll be able to see parcel by parcel how these things evolve. This is an example map, however, all the data is true and correct. This is not in Potawatomi County. This is an expansion project of ours a couple hours north. These are all real easements, and the reason that we're using this is that this project is several years ahead, and we have environmental and engineering data that we've collected through studies that will help to show you how these items compound upon each other and hopefully give you a bit more insight into our development and siting process. So just to kind of make it clear, this yellowish color here, these are all participating easements, and we highlighted this area of the map specifically because of how contiguous it is. This is about 3,300 acres that you see on the screen, but the area of focus are the nearly 4 complete sections of ground that's signed up. If you're a wind engineer taking a first look at a site, this is as about a blanket canvas as you can find from a setback perspective, because there's so much participating ground nearby. All the gray is just unsigned ground. So the first one that we always add in are the roads. This is very standardized. It's a 1.1 times tip height. You'll hear that number a lot. It's industry standard for a number of items, and roads are included in there. These are public roads, of course. The next that we add in, I hope it's not too faint, these yellow pathways here. These are microwave paths. It's not physical infrastructure, but it's important to us. We don't want to impact quality of life, and so this helps us to stay away from interrupting radio or TV. But on a safety side, it also means that we're able not to interrupt EMS or 911 services. But again, this is pretty preliminary. Expand beyond that. Next are the physical infrastructure. So you can see in red the railroad moving through there. In blue is the transmission line. Pipelines are generally included here as well. However, there's none depicted in this image. Next are the environmental setbacks. Now, usually these end up being pretty restrictive. We do several years of avian and bat habitat studies, and this represents about halfway through. You can see to the west, sort of near the crook of the railroad there, are a couple of raptor nests. There are no bald eagle nests in the area of this part of the project, so you won't see those there, but we do take a pretty substantial setback, as you saw in the RWE slides. Mostly what's represented here are waterways. We want to make sure that we're not impacting, although this generally has more, is more useful in the siting of collection lines or access roads. And then we get to the more human factors. So all of the small circles that you see represented here are, think grain bins or maybe CAFOs. We also are setting back from public buildings, churches, cemeteries, machine sheds, things like that. Non-residences, essentially. Now, I know that this is a very busy image, so I don't want to make anybody go colorblind here trying to parse it apart. So if it's grayed out, that means we can't site there. Light green, we still can site the ground. And now I'm going to walk through the 3 scenarios that we're talking about here. So the first is the current ordinance. 1.1 times tip height from property lines and 1,000 feet from residences. Just to make the mapping easier, we're not considering any setback waivers in these slides here. You can see there's still a fair amount of light green available for siting, but it's still pretty well little chopped up here. This is what I think RWE had referred to as the Baird home proposal. We used 1,500 feet and a 500-foot turbine, again, just to make the numbers easy. So you can see it's a bit more restrictive. Those dark blue circles building out from those residences are continuing to cut it up. And really what you're seeing left here are the areas of the fields that are furthest away from any occupied structures. This is what was proposed by planning and zoning. You can't see it, there's a bit of a tiny sliver right there in the center. This is half mile and 1,500 foot from property lines. So as you can see, this is really quite restrictive. Again, this is a massive, massive chunk of contiguous ground. And if you want to think about impacts to smaller family farms, generally the average size of a farm that we see in one of our projects is somewhere between 120 and 200 acres. Those will be folks like here, over there, up here, around there. At this kind of setback distance, they're entirely cut out from any site consideration. So again, that's a lot of information, so let me cut it back to something that's a bit more digestible. Again, the gray is not signed, white is signed but unusable, and the colors there in the center represent ground that we can site a turbine on. This is the current ordinance, 1,000 foot from homes, 1.1 times tip height from property lines. That leaves us with about 460 acres out of the 3,300, so about 13–14% of the ground we can use for a turbine. The next is, again, the Baird home proposal, 1,500 feet or 3 times tip height from residences, 1.1 from homes. This leaves us with about 320, so just under 10% of the ground is siteable. This is the current proposal in front of the board. Half mile and 1,500 feet from property lines. With the environmental and engineering data worked in, initial as it may be, that leaves us with 0.4 acres, meaning that 99.99% of the signed ground in this project area would be completely unusable for a turbine. So, when we say that, or when I had said last week that the current ordinance proposal as written is an effective moratorium, this is the siting that we're talking about. It really is incredibly constrictive. So I want to urge the board to strike a reasonable, responsible approach. I think these images speak for themselves. I'm happy to go into detail or cut apart the nuance where there may be questions. But this would hurt the hundreds of families across the county that have signed into the project. And it certainly would impact massively the hundreds of millions of dollars of intended investment that we want to put alongside these projects. In Venergy, we have a long history of successful development within this state. And so I'm here today to be an earnest contributor to an important conversation. I want to thank you again for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions as they come up.
I'm looking at your map of wind farms in Iowa that you guys maintain or install.
Yes, sir.
Where's the biggest one? What's your biggest wind farm?
So up there in O'Brien County, you can see Highland 2, Highland 1. It's sort of a two-part project, but it's 750 megawatts total.
Okay, and how many wind generators would that be?
That project was built quite a few years before I was here, so I would have to check in specifically. But across the 750, it's several hundred.
Okay, and you're not the only company putting up wind farms in Iowa.
Yes, sir.
And then I noticed down here, Sac County, what is it, Ida County? I can't tell. Carroll.
Ida County's there between Woodbury and Sac.
Yeah.
I just read one too.
There's basically 4 wind farms very close to each other, right there.
Mm-hmm.
At what point is there too many wind generators? I mean, do you have such a figure, you say, hey, we can't put up 500 wind generators, you know, whatever? Is it just a restriction of the property? Or is there something else that comes into play when you say this many is too many?
Sure, that's a great question. So there's really three factors that are of primary importance when we initially select the site.
Okay.
And I know that as somebody who's done a lot of prospecting across this state, not across the upper Midwest. The first is resource, right? Western Iowa is one of the best places in the world to build an onshore wind turbine. This is, you know, it's a fantastic resource that's really helped out the state. The second is transmission. So the overhead transmission lines that we need to connect into the grid, obviously they're very expensive to upgrade and build. And so available transmission is an important factor in where we can pick. And the final one, and the crucial one, and the one that we put years of work into, is community interest, right? All of these easements are voluntary easements. Our land campaigns can take, you know, 5 years plus to bring everybody on board. That's the ultimate determinant of who wants a wind farm where is does the community want that? And I think you can see here, you know, there's Highland 1, Highland 2, Ida 1, Ida 2. Expansion projects are a great example of communities who have seen development, construction, and operation and said, I want more. So again, the map example that I gave here is an expansion project that's several years into it. So we're very proud to come back for repeat business.
What makes Western Iowa so great?
Sorry, are you talking about the wind resource comment? Or,
Yeah.
You know, I don't know that I'm qualified to answer. I just know that there's a great wind resource here.
I can help you out a little bit there.
Yeah.
So if you look at Department of Energy website, Iowa's kind of the Goldilocks of wind energy. Whether you're opposed to it or for it, it's still, the data shows that it's kind of a Goldilocks. If you draw a diagonal line from Hamburg, go straight across up to New Albin, and you would look at the DOE, I'm sorry, I can't remember the site, but it's very easy to find. Just Google Department of Energy wind resources, and it gives there's actually an Iowa graph that shows wind speeds across the state, and if you draw that diagonal corner, basically everything this direction is much more amiable to wind development. And as Harry also mentioned, it's also the combination of transmission lines. If you go up into the Dakotas and Nebraska, they have less ability to transmit it, even though they have more of the resource. If you go this way from Iowa, they have lots more transmission lines, but they don't have the wind availability. Does that answer your question?
Okay, yeah, that did.
And I can get you a website if you, I think you can probably Google it right
You
now and come
explained
up with that if you need it. So.
Okay. Okay, anybody got questions?
What's the setback from the transmission line?
An overhead line is 1.1 times the
Okay.
tower, so it'll scale with it.
And you said about 650 feet is the tip?
For some of our turbines we're looking at, yeah,
Right,
from 590 to 650.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, 650 is generally at the higher end of what you're seeing right now. In construction now, you might see as low as 500 foot.
I should ask that during a public hearing because it's a personal thing for my farm.
Sure, yeah. I mean, unfortunately,
Way to go, Melvin.
What townships are you operating in?
so we're,
I mean, are you guys crossing paths or are you?
no, so our project area is essentially Oakland, Carson, over to the county. So as far in the southeastern corner of the county as you can get to.
Oakland, Carson, and what did you say the other one was?
Down to Elliott.
Down in Elliott. So
Somebody has a wind farm on their property and they sell their property. What happens at that?
So that's a good question.
You get a new landowner.
Yeah, so the facilities remain, the easement runs with the land.
With the land, okay.
So the facilities are not gonna be taken down, there's not gonna be power or a tax base taken out of the
Okay.
county. And that runs for the lifetime of the project, in the same way that our obligations to county community landowners hold if the project, for example, might be acquired, right? They're not able to get out of the road use agreement, for example, if the project's acquired. In the same way that a landowner selling the ground that has an easement, the new landowner's still gonna get those payments.
Okay, has there been any studies done on the property values with a wind generator on there? Has it increased the property values?
Yeah.
I'm guessing it
Yeah.
would, or maybe not, I don't know.
Yeah, so if you've got a wind turbine on your property, that is a great increase to the value of your property. And, you know, I do solar as well across the upper Midwest, and one thing that we see across energy projects or sort of agriculture plus, right, which are additive to farming operations, is that if you want to expand your farm, now that you've got a wind turbine with a set amount of income that's guaranteed for 40 years, it's a lot easier, not just for you to hedge against uncertainty in crop prices or yields, but also a bank is going to look at that as a 40-year guaranteed annuity. It's going to be helpful for you in maybe you know, getting financing on some new machinery or on new ground. So we see a lot of landowners a couple years after the fact who are able to expand their operations as a result of having that supplemental income from the wind farm. So it is quite a value.
I'm gonna let him speak.
May I add to that, Harry?
Yeah.
Supervisor Jorgensen, speaking from personal experience, my father passed away 2 years ago. We happened to be in Worth County, in what's called the Barton Farm. It's not an energy project, but it happened to be a project. We actually had that land appraised for inheritance purposes because we chose to disclaim and give it to our children. And if you'd like, I can bring that appraisal, which actually gives a specific additional value because there's a wind turbine on that parcel of ground. I will also say anecdotally, and this is once again a very personal story. So my son, when my father had 2 turbines, so when my father passed away, my sister received 1 and I received 1. We chose to disclaim. So that particular parcel went to my son. There was about 10 years left of that particular wind contract, which went with the property that my son inherited. He was able 1.5 years ago to utilize the cash flow off those additional 11 years of that turbine contract to leverage a USDA beginning farmer loan and use that to help buy an additional 60 acres for his first farm purchase. So if you'd like, I'll be coming back next week. I can bring that appraisal and have you
Well,
look
if
at
you would,
it. I'd like
yeah.
to see it, sir.
And then the question I would have for other folks who don't have a wind farm or wind generator on their farm, but are next to those, those properties, what is their value?
There is data on that also.
Is there?
Harry, we can get your board that information.
Yeah, I would like to know how that affects all landowners.
Generally, it says not a loss in any property evaluation.
Okay, any more questions?
I do want to make one note before there's any final questions. I did include, just in the interest of transparency, I know that in the setback maps that I had shown, we included engineering and environmental data. At the end of the presentation, I included a few appendix slides that take that environmental data out. So it's just the residence and property line setback. And without going through the numbers or the details, the effect is still the same. So I just wanted to highlight that in case there was any confusion on what's in the packet. But yeah, sorry, back if there's any questions.
Okay, is that it? Thanks for your presentation. We really appreciate the help.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Next up is Tina Tarantos, Operation Administrator, Secondary Roads, and/or Jana Lemrick, Director, Human Resources, Discussion and/or decision on pay for assistant engineer candidate.
I'm Tina today.
Yeah, okay. She was you last week, I think.
Jenna, come on up.
Just like to recommend the board authorize the county engineer to hire above the first step in that pay scale.
That was laid out to us last week, correct?
How far does that put him below you, John?
It really depends where it lands, I guess. I mean, there's a negotiation to be had here that we haven't had yet, but we know we can't hire on the first step. Overall, worst case, I guess, as far as top wages here, my current wages, 16,000.
Between
difference.
Between him and you?
Mhm.
Okay, so you're not coming right back in and asking for an increase?
It is the worst case.
Okay. Oh. Well, are you asking to use the entire range? You're asking to go up to the last step?
Right, just use the scale there. Yeah, I think it'll be that. It's a negotiation, right? We're not done, I guess. You have an approved scale now. I believe we'll be on step 7.
Is he on the same scale you're on?
No.
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 How long has this been posted?
More than 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, about 30 days.
You want approval to negotiate the wage with this person?
Yes.
I'll do that for you.
Okay,
I'll second.
got it. Okay. Got a motion by Supervisor Wickman, second by Jorgensen, to approve the negotiations as we've discussed. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. John, this isn't on this subject, I just wanted to know about our roads on the wind farm stuff. You've reviewed, you kind of know where you want to be.
We got lessons learned from the first wind farm.
That's what I wanted.
I don't have a lot of specifics, but I like
Okay.
what I'm hearing. So
Lessons learned, that's what I
I'll figure it out. It's construction. It's not gonna go without complaints, but it's construction.
Okay. Appreciate it, John. Thank you. Okay. All right, next up, so that's approved. What we got is discussion under decision to accept signature of the board chairman on the quit claim deed for 48485 Mahogany Road, Hancock. The original agreement was approved on March 2nd, 2022, minutes to transfer the transfer station site to the city of Hancock.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those against? Motion carried. Thank you. Next up, Melvin Hauser, Auditor, discussion and/or decision to approve EBS flex spending amount effective January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024, with a change to the section 125 IRS maximum from $3,050 to $3,200 for medical annual contribution. Melvin.
We do this about every other year when the IRS changes their rates, so we just need approval so that employees can deduct up to $3,200 pre-tax for their medical costs and drug costs.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same signal. Motion carried. Thank you, Melvin.
Up there again.
Next up, Melvin Hauser, Auditor, and/or Matt Wyatt, Director of Planning and Development. Discussion and/or decision on new Class C retail alcohol license for Apers Bar Company, LLC, DBA Apers Bar Company, Council Bluffs. Matt?
Yes, I submitted a staff report on this for the board. It's again, another attempt at to provide a liquor license to the Acres venue out on Homestead Avenue. They did meet the qualifications for non-conforming status of a venue hall. However, in the non-conforming status piece of this, you're not allowed to expand upon non-conforming activities. Granting a liquor license to that establishment would constitute an expansion of the non-conforming activities. So I'm here today to again advise the Board of Supervisors to deny the liquor license until they can meet the criteria of upgrading the road, rezoning the property, and getting out of non-conforming status.
This was the family that bought that property for, what, $750,000, and is that, okay. I certainly have a lot of sympathy for them. Matter of fact, the week that we were first discussing this, my best friend in high school, his grandson, who went to school in Harlan, had a graduation party out there at that venue. I think several mentions were, I think our county auditor said that she had attended events out there, and they were non-compliant at that time. Is that right?
Correct.
Planning wise, okay. And these people bought that property not aware of the property was in non-compliant of what was going on that property, right? Matt, like I said, my sympathies go out for this family. If there's certainly any way that can be, there can be a workaround, maybe historically, it's there, it was an operation, a grandfather clause. I would be all for that. Me, this is me. I'm not speaking for anybody else but me. But I've gotten to know these people. They're great people, young family. They certainly should have had things worked out beforehand. I understand that. Not everybody understands that when we get into these projects and businesses. But that's me, so I'll let everybody else speak on this path.
Well, if you want to consider a zoning change, this board can do that at any time. It currently doesn't meet the requirements of a non-conforming use.
Okay, if that's a possibility, I would need help on that because it's not something I don't readily understand. But if it would help them, I would be all for doing that.
Matt, it's your recommendation that the board deny this?
It is.
I'll move that for you, Brian.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to deny. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Motion carried. Thank you, Matt. Okay, committee appointments. I just want to go over that. Last week I went to the VA. We've done a WIDA meeting, Event Southwest Iowa. And I was up the ski hills a couple times, seeing their progress. Susan?
I attended the East Pod Soil and Water meeting, and I've been participating in interviews for the medical examiner position.
It was a busy week for me. I was at the Veteran Services meeting along with Brian. Was at the Southwest Iowa Juvenile Detention Center get-together. They are looking to change their working hours from 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, to 10 hours, 4 days a week. It'd give them an extra, they give them an extra day on the weekends, because they rotate on the weekends. They have to, that facility has to be manned at all times, so they basically rotate their employees. And this would just give them a little extra day on the weekends to enjoy. So that's what's going on there. The Council Bluffs Airport Authority, a lot going on. They're actually looking to kind of pare back their major projects going into this coming year. They've got a lot going on. They need to take care of what they've got on the ground right now. Potawatomi Countywide Tourism Promotion Committee. I was there Friday, and the consensus was they need to shorten up their name. So they're going to be going from Potawatomi Countywide Tourism Promotion Committee to Potawatomi County Tourism, because it helps them when they write grants. It helps them shorten their name to where they can make it a lot easier to write grants. So that's what's going on.
The only thing I had was an Iowa West meeting, which you heard the results of that, Brenda today.
Good. Okay, if that's it.
Can I,
Yes, sir.
since he's talking about veterans, the NACO's Arts and Culture Commission's next meeting is going to be based on arts for veterans, if anybody's interested in what.
Where's that at?
It's a Zoom meeting, but that's the topic on the Arts and Culture meeting is, arts is how it benefits veterans for PTSD or something like that. So if you're interested, let me know. It's on the 27th, next Monday.
Of December?
Next Monday, the 27th.
Next Monday. Okay.
Next Monday. That's when the meeting is, 1:30. If anybody's interested in.
Okay.
I should let Peggy know whether there's something that the commission can do for your veterans.
Okay, public comments. We got anybody signed up?
Yes.
Oh. Thanks, David.
Just had to sign those papers.
We had 4 sign up. Rodney Wall.
He's left.
Rodney left.
Okay.
Rosalie Soloth.
Let me read this first. Now begins our public comment portion
Well,
of the
let's wait.
agenda.
Oh, Sean is here, all right. Go ahead.
In an effort to protect the privacy of individuals and reduce the potential broadcasting of defamatory and/or confidential information, our live broadcast will now end. Information regarding public comments and the public